Today we covering the Stepdaughter 2. If you haven't seen the first one, link is in description and comments. But basically what had happened was, a stepdaughter named Joanna was trying to kill his father's new girl and kids. She even tried to seduce her own stepbro. It also turned out that the father was in on the plan all along. After failing to kill Whitney, the wealthy wife of her father Michael Lawrence, and her sons Brian and Eric, Joanna Lawrence recovers in the hospital. Her doctor says Joanna been in a coma for a whole month. Joanna's fake ass acts so sweet, but then she entraps the doctor, coming out of nowhere, kills her doctor, and escapes the hospital wearing her doctor's clothes. Damn that hospital ghetto if they didn't even have security detail on her. Meanwhile, the fine-ass Michael, who has fully recovered and has changed his name to Christopher, meets a wealthy widowed mother named Tessa with her hide-and-seek wig, can barely see her eyes. Meanwhile, Joanna yells at her Aunt Deborah, her current guardian, for nagging her. Deborah calls her little girl and puts the crazy girl in her place. Unfortunately for Deborah, Joanna kicks her ass down the stairs, then screams for help. 1 year later, Christopher and Tessa are married. He really found another sugar mama to put his tadpoles in. Tessa's business, Stretch, blows up. It's basically like spandex. Her 17-year-old son Trevor has gotten into Ivy League schools even after affirmative action was dismantled. He finna become a lawyer. Christopher says he feels honored to be part of the family, and they all toast. 1 week later, Joanna appears at Tessa's house party, shocking Christopher, who subtly tries to make the Lifetime movie Crazy Girl leave. Joanna tearfully informs him and Tessa that Deborah has died after falling down the stairs, to which Christopher points out that her Medea grandmother died the same way, suspecting that she killed Deborah too. When Joanna tells them that she's hoping she can stay with them because she has nowhere else to go, Tessa asks to talk privately with Christopher, who introduces Joanna to Trevor before leaving. Why Trevor kinda looked like Rallo Tubbs Brown? For some odd reason, Trevor tells Joanna that he sucks at math and needs her to tutor him. Either this Ivy League bro is playing chess, or them Tubi writers forgot another plot hole. After Christopher assures Tessa that he'll be responsible for Joanna, Tessa decides to give Joanna the guest bedroom far from Trevor's room until they figure out something permanent for her. While Christopher informs Joanna about the decision, Tessa tells her best friend Jessica that she doesn't like Joanna staying with them because teenage girls are sassy, fast, conniving, and very manipulative. Damn, Tessa misogynist. But she ain't wrong about Joanna in this case. At night, Tessa and Joanna have a sweet talk. No wonder Tessa can't see all them red flags, them bangs in her way. While at the Stretch office, Tessa calls Trevor, who is Stretch's social media manager, to ask about Stretch's new social media posts for their new campaign. After the call, Joanna, who has heard their conversation, tells Trevor that she's good with social media, so he can ask for her help if he ever needs anything. Later, while Joanna pretends to paint, Christopher visits Joanna in her room to ask her how she survived. Joanna informs him that she almost died and was in a coma for a month before waking up, killing her doctor and escaping. Christopher informs her that he almost died too, but he recovered and then he laid low for a couple of weeks. Christopher asks Joanna to leave because he doesn't want her to ruin what he has built, saying he's genuinely happy with Tessa. He has a history of marrying wealthy women to get an inheritance after killing them, so when he refuses to let Joanna do his scam, Joanna threatens to tell Tessa that he has murdered multiple women, including her mother. These to-be killers need to give lessons because how they always get away with murder. Joanna also brings up that when Tessa's husband died, he gave her all his money, so she's a double billionaire. Finally, Christopher agrees to let her in, but asks to spare Trevor because he has a whole life ahead of him, to which Joanna reluctantly agrees. At the police station, Detective Irving brings up the Lawrence case and informs her superior, Detective Hines, that contrary to what they know, the father-daughter duo both got shot, but they did not die on the scene. Michael was not found and Joanna escaped from the hospital. Noticing how he seems to be so determined to catch the two, Irving asks him why it sounds so important and personal to him, to which he says that it's literally their job to catch bad people. Meanwhile, the previous stepmother, Whitney, continues to suffer from PTSD and self-harm tendencies, especially because she feels guilty for failing to protect Brian's best friend. Brian, who has stepped up as the man of the house, takes care of her and Eric. With Brian's urging, Whitney agrees to seek professional help. Whitney attends a self-help group for recovering alcoholics, where she shares how her traumatic incident led to her alcohol addiction. After the session, Hines and Irving arrive. Hines, who's Whitney's ex, then asks her to go with them to the station. At the police station, Hines gives Whitney black coffee with brown sugar, just how she likes her eggplant. Hines informs Whitney that Joanna and Michael have escaped. Since they don't have a body, they assume that they're roaming free. Hines advises the anxious and paranoid Whitney not to worry too much, since neither has reached out to her yet, and assures her that he will see to it that they'll get caught. When Hines asks for her cooperation, Whitney informs him that Joanna's real name is Maggie Dillon. Although they've relocated and no one knows where they live, Hines tells her that he's going to assign an officer to her house to protect them. Hines tells her that he's there for her if she needs him. Emotional, he holds her hands and asks what happened to their relationship, to which Whitney says that she found Good D. It just turned out that Good D is usually attached to Crazy. After Whitney leaves, Irving, who's been watching them, tells Hines that she now understands his dedication to the case. At dinner, Trevor fetches Joanna, who's painting in her room, because Christopher wants her to join them so he can also introduce her to Tessa's family. Joanna explains her painting to Trevor, and he gives her a bombastic side-eye look. Trevor tells her that her painting reminds him of Harry, their neighbor from across the street who is old, weird, and rude to him. Joanna says she can take care of Harry if he wants, but Trevor says she's just a girl, and this triggers Joanna. She goes to hold his knee and Trevor feels uneasy. Joanna finally goes to meet the family. At first, she makes a good impression, but Joanna admits that everywhere she goes, someone dies. The aunties whisper and say she's glad she don't live here. The next day, Tessa takes a pregnancy test after feeling nauseous. She is then delighted when it comes out positive. Confused about which picture to post on the Stretch social media, Trevor asks for Joanna's opinion. He says wow when he sees her watermelons. They're his favorite. After a few seconds, she tells Trevor that she has already posted the photo she preferred and returns the phone. Shortly after, Tessa visits Trevor in his room to ask him about how he feels about Christopher and Joanna. Trevor tells her that although Christopher came with extra baggage, what's important for him is that she's happy. When Tessa tells him the good news, Trevor tells him he's happy for her. Unbeknownst to them, Joanna is eavesdropping. Later that night, their neighbor Harry watches TV and sees the news report about the extremely dangerous father-daughter criminals, Michael Lawrence and Maggie Dillon, with Christopher and Joanna's photos. Alarmed, he immediately calls Tessa, asking her to come by and see him as soon as possible, saying, "You in danger, girl." Tessa asks Jessica to visit her, and as soon as she arrives, she shows her her pregnancy test. As they both squeal in excitement, Joanna asks them why they are so happy. Jessica tells her that they're celebrating because she got a raise, and Joanna congratulates her sarcastically and leaves. Jessica then tells Tessa that she feels like there's something wrong with Joanna. Jessica says that Joanna is 18 and grown, so just toss her ass. Meanwhile, Joanna tells Christopher about the baby and tells him that if the baby lives, he'll get nothing because the inheritance will go to Trevor and the baby. Because of Tessa's celebrity status, they can't just kill her or her entire family. Joanna suggests getting rid of Trevor first, and then Tessa needs to lose the baby due to the stress and trauma of losing Trevor. When Joanna arrogantly asks what he'll do without her because she's the brains of their operation, Christopher tells her that without her, he'll probably live happily ever after with Tessa. Joanna gets upset about this revelation. When Tessa gets home late, Joanna tries to call her mommy, but Tessa thinks it's weird. The next morning, an excited Christopher cooks breakfast for his family and reveals to Tessa that he saw her pregnancy test while throwing out the trash. "Then why you and your daughter still here?" Shortly after, a man named Brandon arrives, shocking Tessa. In private, Tessa reveals to Christopher that Brandon is Trevor's biological father, shocking Christopher. She explains that she was already pregnant when she got married to his late husband Hank, who has accepted Trevor as his own. Since Brandon doesn't know that he's Trevor's real father, she asks Christopher to keep it a secret. Unbeknownst to them, Joanna being nosy AF. Shortly after, when Christopher asks Brandon how he found them, Brandon says he saw their location on the ad on Stretch's social media, which Joanna posted. Christopher says it's giving creepy stalker, and they give each other awkward laughs. Before Brandon leaves, he tells Tessa where he's staying and asks for closure. Brandon becomes confrontational, saying it was because of Tessa's parents that he went to prison. Christopher diffuses the situation and asks for an explanation, but Tessa got her own secrets and walks away. Shortly after, Joanna, who's been watching them, mocks Christopher for being affected. The next day, Harry goes to Tessa's house and warns Trevor that there are criminals in their house. However, he does it in an aggressive way, which creeps Trevor out. When Joanna appears, he calls her evil and a criminal. Before leaving, he tells Trevor that he'll tell Tessa the truth if he doesn't and will call the police. Later that night, Joanna sneaks into Harry's house and kills him with Ozempic. Meanwhile, Eric shares with Hines and Irving that he has seen Michael, aka Christopher, through the window once and told Brian 3 months after. They both kept it from Whitney because she was already dealing with too much. Eric adds that Michael drove off in a neighbor's car, thinking it might help. Before he leaves, Hines tells Whitney that he still loves her, to which she says that she's open to talking to him when everything is okay. A shaken Tessa informs Christopher that she visited Harry after hearing his voicemail, only to find him dead. Christopher comforts her, saying Harry's already old, so it's not surprising that he got a heart attack. Meanwhile, Trevor goes to Joanna's room to inform her of Harry's death. Joanna said the old man had what was coming. When Trevor asks about her painting, Joanna says it's him and his dad, and then she reveals that his real father is Brandon. Joanna brings Trevor to Brandon's apartment so he can ask him for the truth. Unbeknownst to Joanna, Christopher has followed them. Brandon calls Tessa to confront her, and then he informs her that he'll take it to court for joint custody, pissing off Tessa. Brandon then calls a man named Terry and asks him to do a background check on Christopher. At home, Tessa confronts Christopher, who denies saying anything to anyone. Tessa apologizes to an upset and hurt Trevor. Realizing it was the trifling little girl, Tessa calls her an evil bitch, then angrily attacks Joanna. As Christopher pulls Tessa away from Joanna, Tessa falls on the floor, prompting Trevor to push him. When Christopher punches him, Tessa kicks Christopher and Joanna out of her house, and rightfully so. On their way out, they encounter Brandon, who's there to pick up Trevor. Christopher and Brandon fight until Tessa intervenes. Realizing that Trevor and Joanna are gone, the angry Tessa threatens to press charges against both Christopher and Joanna, but Christopher shakes her, then promises to find Trevor. After Christopher leaves, Tessa tends to Brandon's injuries, who says he just wanted to get to know Trevor. Girl, that a good man. He may not be fine, but that's what a sister needs sometimes. The Temu Jamie Foxx calls Brandon and informs him that Christopher is clean. Since there isn't much about Christopher, Terry asks Brandon to send him a photo of Christopher so he can dig more through facial recognition. Later that night, Joanna lures Tessa to where they are by texting her using the phone of the unconscious and bound Trevor. When Tessa arrives, Joanna knocks her out. An armed Christopher arrives and sees the unconscious and bound mother and son. When Joanna mocks him for falling in love with their target, Christopher tells Joanna that he genuinely wants to stop their scam and move on because he's happy. Joanna tells him that since he killed her mother, she will take everything he loves and that he will never be happy as long as she's around. Meanwhile, the police find out that the stolen vehicle Michael took was found in San Diego. After Joanna reveals that she plans on killing all of them so she'll be the sole inheritance recipient, she shoots at Christopher, who shoots back. As they fight, Brandon arrives with the police, who arrest both Christopher and Joanna. Joanna attempts to manipulate the officers, but they don't listen to her. Hines and Irving talk to Tessa, Brandon, and Trevor, all still shaken from the incident. Months later, Tessa gives birth and Brandon takes care of her. Meanwhile, Hines visits Joanna at the mental hospital to inform her that her father escaped from prison a week ago and to ask for her help in finding him. Joanna ignores him but smiles with her disheveled-ass hair. To Whitney's horror, when she gets home, Michael greets her. He is dressed as a cop and is standing next to a car with the corpse of the officer Hines had assigned to their house. And that's the end of Stepdaughter 2. We assume that there will be a Stepdaughter 3, probably with the same exact plot as 1 and 2. What did y'all think of this one?
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.